are you?
Yeah, how you doing? Will Kunkel, Charlotte Sports Live, Queen City News. Yesterday they were saying, Frank was saying that you guys will run a 3-4. What have you seen in this roster, and what pieces do you see being moved, and most importantly, how will you use someone like Jeremy Chan?
Yeah, I mean, those are all going to be great conversations we're going to have moving forward. There's a lot of talented players on this roster. You know, Mr. Burns, Derek Brown, Mr. Chin, J.C. Horn. There's a lot of good players on this roster. It's one of the reasons that I wanted to be here, be in this organization. But you know, it's always an evaluation process, and you know, we'll see what happens with a lot of the guys that their status is in question right now in terms of free agency. And as we move forward and put this thing together, you know, that's where we kind of figure those things out. So,
Ejiro, Mike Kay from the Charlotte Observer, you brought up Brian Burns. There was a lot made of him potentially coming or going during the trade deadline last year. I'm just curious, how big of an asset was that when you were looking at potential defensive coordinator jobs and seeing that you had a guy like that at the edge rusher position?
Oh yeah, no, I mean him amongst others, but yeah, it's definitely a big part of it. Talented player, you know, I think a guy that really has the ability to be an elite edge rusher, edge player in this league, and so we're excited to work with him.
Ejiro Evero from
ESN. We know why they chose you. Can you talk about, elaborate on why you decided to take the position?
Well, you know, I'm very, very fortunate and appreciative of the opportunity from Mr. Tepper and Coach Reich. It's you know, this has been a first-class organization, in my opinion. Just from afar, watching them, observing them, they've been successful. They've had a lot of periods of success. You know, multiple Super Bowl appearances. But like we've just been talking about, like as you look at the roster, you look at some of the players here, look at what Coach Rice brings in terms of coaching staff. There are just so many pieces here that are just attractive to success, and so that's the biggest reason. It's like, you know, I wanted to be in a situation where we can win, and win is the most important thing. So,
Ejiro from NBC, welcome.
Thank you.
When you look at the defense and zoom in on that, what you've observed from afar as an opponent, as somebody that's been watching the crossover tape, I mean, what have you noticed about where they've been in the last few years and where they could go soon?
Well, the first thing I observe is they play hard, right? They play with great effort, and that's always going to be the starting point of our defenses. And there's big time players, and there's a lot of youthful talent that we're hoping that we can get the best out of. And so when you combine that effort and when you combine those players, you know, I think the sky's the limit. That's what we're excited about.
Ejiro, Steve Reed with the Associated Press. Welcome to Charlotte.
Thank you.
I was just curious. You worked with Dom Capers last year, and obviously there's some history here with him. What did you learn from him, and what is he like? What is it like being around him?
Well, I first started off in Green Bay in 2016 when I was his quality control coach. So I was doing a lot of, you know, Dom was a coordinator and I was doing all of the grunt work, and then transitioned into last year where it's, you know, as a first-time coordinator, you know, there's a lot of things that you really don't know about the job, even though you feel like you're prepared for the opportunity till you get into that seat. And Coach Capers is beyond, you know, in terms of a guide to how to do the job and do it at a high level and an elite level, and someone to bounce ideas off of, and just, you know, a man of great character as well. And so all of those things, as a first-time coordinator, you know, were so valuable to me.
Joe Person with The Athletic. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you. On Dom, how would you characterize your relationship with him?
Well, it's you know, it's a collaboration. You know, it's a friendship and it's a collaboration. He's a dear friend, and he's somebody that we work together with. And a big thing I tell everybody, like, this is not my defense. It's me, the coaches, especially Dom's influence, and the players. We're all putting this thing together, and we're collaborating to make a defense and make the best defense possible. And Dom is definitely a huge part of that.
When you talk about kind of what you've drawn from him, do you kind of keep him young and hip in a way too?
Dom stays plenty young by himself.
Vash Shihart with Carolina Blitz. You talked about your evaluation process. Can you go a little deeper into what that looks like, and have you reached out to any of the players yet?
Yeah, no, we've made contact with some of the players, and you know, really it's just, you know the players from afar, and there's probably some crossover tape and things like that you see, but like you really don't know them. And so it's really studying them, what they do well, where they can improve, how they fit into our system. But at the end of the day, it's like we got to make the system fit around them. So.
What was this process like for you emotionally, coming in here, wanting to be a head coach, particularly in this building, interviewing, not getting the job, and then coming back as a DC? Just wrapping your head around that.
I don't think too much about that. My approach my entire career has been, hey, wherever you are, that's where you are. And I'm not really worried about the next job. I'm worried about the job that's present. And I think, the best way to advance in this league is to do a great job where you are. And that's my concern. Very fortunate that I had the opportunities I had these last couple of weeks, and it was a great experience for me to interview for those jobs. But once that process is over, and once I signed the papers to come to Carolina, none of that really matters anymore. It's about building a winning program here, and so that's kind of how I view it.
Ellis Williams, Charlotte Observer. Can you expand on what coaches in recent league history you credit as your influences or the pillars for the defense you plan on bringing here to Carolina?
Well, it's a whole lot of them. I've been very fortunate to be around a lot of great coordinators, a lot of great head coaches. Starting off with Monty Kiffin in Tampa, and going to Vic Fangio in San Francisco, Dom obviously in Green Bay, Wade Phillips, Raheem Morris, Brandon Staley. And I just think like when you're blessed to be around so many great coaches, what you try to do is not like be like any one of them. I think at the end of the day we got to be ourselves, but at the same time you want to learn from every experience that you've had, and that's what I've tried to do. Just try to take the best attributes, try to learn from some of the mistakes, and then as we move forward in our journey here, you just try to use those lessons to serve you well in the future.
Going back to Dom for a second, on a day-to-day basis, what does a senior defensive assistant do?
He does everything. He's somebody I could bounce ideas off of. He's someone that gives ideas and input on the game plan. He helps us with a lot of our tendencies, and he does some motivational things with the team as well. So he's got his hands in a lot of things.
And then speaking of being your own coach, you and Thomas Brown are really coming into your own here in Carolina. You work with him every day for multiple seasons in Los Angeles. What is it about Thomas's day-to-day process that merits the respect of his peers in this industry?
Well, one is leadership. He's just a leader. He's a natural leader. He walks into the room. He commands respect. He's extremely intelligent. He's very detailed. He's very thorough, and he's very businesslike. And he just has a great way about him. And I think he just gains. Anybody that spends any time with him is instant credibility.
What is it like at practice? The offense and defensive units competing with each other. I know you guys haven't coordinated your own units with each other now, but you have a sense of what he's going to bring to practice every day.
Yeah, we're both going to try to win.
David Newton, ESPN.com. What pieces are missing from the talent that you have coming back that you feel like you really need to make a 3-4 work?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too much into the details of what we're going to do, but we're going to take a great look at the roster, and we're still going through that process right now. And as we work through it, we'll figure it out.
Ejiro, you worked with Jalen Ramsey, who has a father who's a coach. You've worked with Patrick Surtain, who obviously comes from a football family. Now you have J.C. Horn. I was just curious, as a teacher, how much does it help you when a guy kind of has that background of through the family, kind of having the coach at the dinner table sort of atmosphere for the cornerback?
Yeah, I mean, it helps a lot. Absolutely, it helps. I just met JC yesterday for the first time, and you can see the intelligence just oozing out of him. And it definitely helps. And the best players are the smartest players, and when you have that background, it definitely helps.
Can you elaborate on what you envision the identity of this defense being?
Physical, great effort, and attacking the ball.
What were your recollections of I guess it was the November game here with the Broncos?
Well, that was unfortunately our first-hand look at the talent this team possesses and the capabilities this team possesses. But I told Scott and Dan Morgan when I was interviewing for the job that, these guys, the Panthers blocked us as well as anybody that we played all year. And so from an offensive standpoint, you saw the offensive line come to life. DJ Moore, there's some really good pieces on this offense, and didn't really get to watch the defense really, but just crossover film and things of that nature, you see the talent. But definitely it was a good experience.
And if you weren't coaching, what would you have gone into, do you think?
Oh, that's a great question. I always thought I was going to be in the business world, but I see a lot of my good friends from college that are firefighters, and I kind of like that lifestyle. You know, work a little bit and then a lot of time off.
The majority of your staff you work with in Denver, LA. Todd Wash, the guy you have like a long history with. Why was he so important to bring to the staff, and how were you able to add him since he was taking the same job from Detroit?
Yeah, well, you know, Todd had some personal things that drew him down here, getting closer to his family and things of that nature. Yeah, he's just, you know, we haven't worked together in a long time, but we've stayed up. And you know, he's been a coordinator. He's been a defensive line coach for a long time. You see his work from afar in terms of the product on the field, and just a great teacher, extremely detailed. He's passionate. He connects with the players. So yeah, it's definitely a great get for us.
As you're Phil from the ABC affiliate here, there's a lot of talk about the scheme and the base scheme, but beyond that, what are the kind of core principles you look for personnel-wise in a defense?
Well, you know, we just talked about it, just the philosophy of our defense, but we look for guys that are physical, right? We look for guys that play with great effort, guys that are smart. I think those are the type of intangibles that are winning intangibles. So at the end of the day, we want to be a physical, aggressive team that plays with great effort, but we don't want to ever beat ourselves.
Ejiro, this team is, you know, the defense has been coming along each year. The takeaway numbers have not probably been where they've wanted them to be. How do you kind of enhance that as a coach and in this game? Like, what's your approach to
I think the number one way is you got to get after the quarterback, right? So we just got to get pressure on the quarterback. We got to find ways to affect the quarterback, and I think that's where those takeaways start happening.
There are certain players that, obviously, with salary cap situations, you got to take a look at that. Have you kind of voiced an opinion on whether you want Shaq Thompson to be a part of what you're building going forward, or kind of where do you stand on that?
Yeah, you know, again, those are all questions that are above my pay grade. But if you talk about the player, that's definitely a player that I really admire, and I think he's a heck of a player, and definitely would love to coach him.
How does he fit in with a 3-4 scheme for you?
Very well. Yeah, he's an inside backer. He's a 3-down player, and he's a guy that can play the run game. He's good in zone coverage. He can see the quarterback. He can match running backs. Yeah, he fits just right.
Realizing you're still early in this, but Chin is kind of that intriguing guy where, you know, the first year he was playing linebacker, made a lot of plays, and they moved him to safety. Can you give us an idea where you kind of see him fitting in this 3-4?
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that's very, very talented, big, fast, physical, can tackle, gets the ball out. And, you know, I think that's where we got to do a good job of just finding those pieces, those places for him to play. And, you know, and it might be a matter of him being moved around and doing different things, but definitely excited to work with a player like him.
Coach Scott Fowler from the Charlotte Observer. Just on a philosophical level, why do you think a 3-4 as a base defense is better suited in the NFL than 4-3?
Well, I just think from the standpoint of protections, you know, you just don't know if you're going to have a 4-down structure or a 4-man rush structure. You don't know where that extra rusher is coming from. So it's that extra level that the offense has to go through to figure out what you're doing. And you know, I think probably too much gets made about 2-3-4 versus 4-3 because the way the NFL is trending, you really only play so few downs of base defense. So most of the time you're playing sub defense, which a lot of people are about the same.
So with that said, how important is the nickel position now in this modern day NFL?
Oh, it's critical. It's critical because that's a guy that is it's got to be a coverage guy, obviously matching receivers. He's got to be able to play in the run game. The way that people are jet motion and stuff like that, he becomes a linebacker pretty quickly, and so very important position.
Ejiro Evero with Panthers.com. You've mentioned a lot about kind of, you know, matching the scheme to the players versus the players to the scheme. Can
Correct.
you kind of take me through your balancing act there? You know, are you kind of focused on making the players fit, making the scheme fit the players? Just kind of take me through that.
Yeah, so like when you first come in and you take the job, it's, you know, it's my job, it's the defensive coach's jobs, working along with the personnel people. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we really understand what all of these players do well, and they're at this level, they're on this team because they have certain skill sets that are very good, and we want to figure that out. And as we put our defense together, you know, obviously there's going to be a framework from where we start off at in terms of what we've done in the past in Denver. But at the end of the day, it's like we're not going to ever ask guys to do things they can't do well. So,
Looks like you had a good deal of say in forming your staff. How beneficial was that?
Well, that's what I really appreciate about Coach Frank. It's not so much I had a say, but we really were thorough and detailed and collaborated on getting together. And it was never a matter of, hey, we got one guy pegged for the position and we're gonna hire him. It was, hey, let's talk about it. What do these guys bring to the table? What are some other options? Let's be really thorough and detailed about our approach. And I think it turned out very, very well.
And your views on the staff here in general that Frank's put together? Outstanding. High character men, very good teachers, guys with energy and passion for the game. So far, my interactions with all these guys have been outstanding, and looking forward to working with them.
What was your impression of David Tepper during the whole interview process as the head coach and the coordinator position?
Oh, he's fun. He's a lot of fun, yeah. He's really into it, which is what I appreciate. He really loves football. He loves the interaction of it. He loves being involved, and from a good way, and he's been great. So I really appreciate him.
Did you have a prior relationship with D'Angelo Hall, and what is it going to be like to bring him in here?
I did not have a relationship with him, but a lot of guys that I trust very much had prior relationships with them, and I think it's going to be invaluable because when you play at a high level like he did, when you are a smart football player that's actually done it, comes in with instant credibility. And just my little interactions with him so far, he's just natural in teaching and understanding the game, and he's definitely going to bring a lot to us.
We all good?
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.